Stop me if you've heard this before. This guy is the future of the NBA. He's the next LeBron. He's the next Kobe. He's the next Kevin Durant. Every few years, the basketball world anoints an up-and-coming player as the next big thing. From Kwame Brown and Anthony Bennett to Adam Morrison, Greg Oden, Darko Milicic, and Markelle Fultz, the circumstances were never identical, but the common denominator was always the same: big talents and even bigger disappointments. So is Anthony Edwards, aka the Ant-Man, different? Stick around as we take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves' emerging star and find out if he has what it takes to become the NBA's next superstar. Paul George is an 8-time All-Star who's universally respected throughout the NBA. His words carry weight. He made some strong statements on his podcast about 22-year-old Anthony Edwards recently. He said, "It's pretty special with who he's becoming. At that age, at this stage, you're putting him amongst the young stars he's going to be competing with for the next 10 to 15 years. And now he's becoming the alpha of them. That's a special kid, man. He's the future." Game recognizes game. So how did we get here? Even though he entered the league as the #1 pick in the 2020 NBA draft, Anthony Edwards was one of the most polarizing prospects in recent memory. He played his lone season of college ball at Georgia and his team wasn't very good. They finished the season with a record of 16-16, placing 13th in the SEC Conference. While some scouts recognized that he had every physical attribute that can make him an all-star, others could not overlook his erratic shot selection and poor effort on defense. They saw him as a black hole on offense, often settling for wild three-point shots, and as a disinterested defender a majority of the time. In a draft that was very thin on high-caliber talent, many saw LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman as safer choices for the top spot in the draft. Anthony Edwards proved himself to be a big-time scorer from day one in the league. He averaged 19.4 points as a rookie and showed off a rare combination of power and athleticism that separated him from all the other rookies. Never was this more apparent than when Ant-Man drove baseline and posterized Toronto Raptors forward Yuta Watanabe with a vicious, gravity-defying slam that many fans considered the dunk of the year. But Edwards did more than score and dunk in his rookie campaign. He played in all 72 games during the COVID-shortened season and averaged 32 minutes per contest. Many NBA fans and observers were a bit surprised when Edwards finished a distant second to Charlotte Hornets rookie point guard LaMelo Ball in the Rookie of the Year voting. Ball took home the hardware despite missing over 20 games due to injury. But leading the Hornets to the playoffs probably was a key factor that pushed Ball over the top. Conversely, the Timberwolves struggled to win a measly 23 games as injuries to Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell derailed their season. The Minnesota Timberwolves could not have been happier that Anthony Edwards came into his sophomore season with a big chip on his shoulder over the Rookie of the Year voting. He was determined to prove his doubters wrong and get his club back to the playoffs, which was a place the Wolves had only been once in their previous 17 seasons. Like any 20-year-old playing in the NBA, Edwards had his ups and downs during year 2. But there was so much to like. He was bigger, stronger, and more sure of himself. He improved on his shooting percentages, becoming a legitimate knockdown shooter that teams could not leave open. He made big strides defensively, showing an ability to be a problem both on the ball and in the passing lanes. Most importantly, he proved he had the game to match his swagger when he led the Timberwolves back to the playoffs. Ant-Man wasted no time in announcing his arrival in a play-in game versus none other than Paul George and the Clippers. While Wolves star center Karl Anthony Towns endured a nightmarish game, shooting 3 for 11 for 11 points and fouling out with 7 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, Edwards rose to the occasion, pouring in 30 points to secure the biggest win of the season. And while Minnesota went on to lose to Memphis in 6 games in the first round of the playoffs, Anthony Edwards averaged 25 points per game to further cement his status as a big game performer. Anthony Edwards continued on his upward trajectory this past season. He raised his scoring average to 24.6 points per game and upped his defensive game to new heights. Because to be mentioned among the best of the best in the NBA, you need to have an impact on both ends of the floor. In a testament to how well-rounded a player he's willed himself into, he became the only NBA player with 1,500 points and 100 steals in each of the past 2 seasons. He made his first All-Star game a year after being snubbed. And while he led the Wolves back to the playoffs, they again fell in the first round, this time to the eventual champion Denver Nuggets. Despite the loss, Edwards was sensational, averaging 31.6 points in the series, including a 41-point outburst in Game 2. Now that he's helped turn Minnesota into a perennial playoff team, the next step is helping make them contenders. The summer of 2023 has only added to Ant-Man's rise to glory. In July, he signed a 5-year rookie maximum contract extension with Minnesota that could be worth as much as $260 million with incentives. And it didn't take him long to become the go-to guy for Team USA. As the U.S. men's team prepared for the 2023 FIBA World Cup tournament, Anthony Edwards quickly asserted himself as the alpha dog that Paul George had raved about. Head coach Steve Kerr pulled Edwards aside during the team's training camp held during early August in Las Vegas. He proposed having Edwards come off the bench to provide some extra firepower to the second unit. Kerr pointed out that Dwayne Wade came off the bench when Kobe played for the gold medal-winning Redeem team at the 2008 Olympics. Wade managed to lead the team in scoring in his reserve role. Ant-Man was not buying it. He later explained, of course I wasn't cool with it. If that's what it takes, I'm willing to do it, but nah, I'm never cool with that. Coach said Dwayne Wade came off the bench when Kobe played. I was like, all right, we don't have a Kobe. Kerr wisely abandoned the idea. It quickly proved to be a solid decision. The U.S. found itself down 16 in the second half during an exhibition game against Germany. Dennis Schroeder carved up the U.S. guards for a large stretch of the game, but Anthony Edwards took it upon himself to make sure the U.S. would not lose. Over the final 13-plus minutes of action, Team USA outscored Germany 44-20, thanks in part to Edwards scoring 17 points, half of his total of 34, in the final period alone. The Americans held a jaw-dropping plus 37 advantage on the scoreboard when Edwards was on the floor. His outburst was not a one-time event, as Edwards has been Team USA's leading scorer both during their 5 exhibition tune-ups and in World Cup play. Edwards' strong play has received glowing reviews all around the league. Miami Heat head coach and Team USA assistant coach Eric Spoelstra said Edwards reminds him of Heat legend Dwayne Wade. In a recent interview, he said, "It's hard not to look at Anthony Edwards and not see Dwayne Wade in him. I'm not a guy for comparisons, but the way he moves, the way he competes, the way he electrifies a crowd. Yes, that reminds me of number 3, and I've told Anthony that. I feel like I'm going back in time." Social media took the accolades to a whole different level. Around the time Ant-Man was leading the charge for Team USA, viral videos started popping up in places like Twitter and Reddit comparing him to the GOAT, Michael Jordan. From hitting fadeaway shots, driving past opponents, finishing in traffic, throwing down vicious slam dunks to their defensive presence, the clip displaying the comparisons was surprising in how similar the two play alike. There were even a bunch of posts commenting on how Edwards physically resembles Jordan, which led to some lighthearted speculation that Edwards could be Jordan's son. Just for the record, he's not. But ever since Michael Jordan entered the NBA in 1984, countless players have been dubbed the next Jordan. While most of these players never panned out that way, there's growing sentiment that Anthony Edwards might have what it takes to come close. Even Shaq has gotten on the Edwards bandwagon. O'Neal shared a post on his Instagram account that dubbed Edwards as the Michael Jordan of our generation. At only 22 years old, Anthony Edwards is most certainly a star on the rise. Whether or not he can replicate what Michael Jordan did remains to be seen. But the word is out around the league. Ant-Man is a force to be reckoned with.